Hi, it's Steve and Joe from Freshagenda, and Steve, we're here from lockdown Melbourne.
Yeah, day 17 of 42 of a stage 4 lockdown. For those who aren't up with this, we can go 5 kilometres from our house. We can do one grocery store trip a day, just for one of us. But the grog shops are open, and that is good.
8 o'clock curfew.
8 o'clock curfew. That's a short wrap. So this week we have a few interesting updates from around the world, looking at the GDT result and, of course, the popular chart of the week spot. But let's get underway. Milk value. So just to recap on where the value of milk is in each region. You see quite diverse there, but...
it's been a real rollercoaster in the US with milk prices.
Yeah, coming off and just kicking up a little bit in the last few days, which doesn't get shown up here. But the other thing in the US, which is very interesting, which happened last month, and again, to more an extent this month, is this PPDs, or their discounts, milk price discounts from the class value. So that's got a lot of angry dairy farmers talking about the faults of their system again. But it is what it is, and that's...
it is what it is.
Yeah.
Famous words.
How profound. Looking at the US market, there's an update on what's happened. This loss of food service. So gradually clambering back there. That's the government's food sales data showing that food service is back to 17% below where it was pre-COVID. So it is clambering back up slowly. It's probably going to flatten out when we look at what's going on with those second wave, or really it's really the ripple effect.
The continuation of the first wave,
the Mexican wave around the crowd.
Yeah.
So that is Google mobility data there, which shows that things have really levelled out in most big locations. There are 5 states there, which, they were getting quite exuberant there, but they've all gone into a fairly flat mode. And we're seeing more restrictions place. So that'll probably take a turn for the worse as we get later in the year and outdoor seating won't work in venues and people are back to seeing closed venues. That will probably worsen.
And obviously the issues with reopening schools are there and will start impacting fluid milk sales as well,
and
potentially.
So estimates were that 52% of schools will be back, I think. So that's a bit of the market that might go missing. Out of the industry over there has also been a release of domestic disappearance or demand, the proxy for demand, showing that, cheese and butter demand has been fairly good year on year, with people buying more at grocery and a bit of filling going on. That's June data, which helps that look a bit better in the case of cheese.
Yeah, other cheese, which includes mozzarella, not so good there, Steve. You would think if the food service sector was really firing that would look better. Yeah,
but it's still well below par, isn't it? So, that probably will get a little better, but then you see the retail demand come off a bit as well. So
swings and slides.
Yeah. And the cheese market in the US did that spectacular crash, and it just rebounded a bit. Now, that could just be the fact that charts hit, and it's got to hit something and bounce up. So it's a dead cat bounce, perhaps. A little bit of a flurry there, but looking at the longer price hardly budged. Some of those later futures for December and January have hardly moved through all this kerfuffle. So it's all about exposed positions, I guess.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about the USA was we just throw up that days in stock. It did get quite tight. This is historic, but it did get very tight.
So there was something about that. There was something behind that climb. But the question is, where are we now?
Essentially the cheap product got cleared very quickly, and so those that needed to turn up to the market to get some uncommitted stock found there wasn't a lot left. Which is what drove up that spot value. Fluid milk sales got released. The USDA had a bit of a problem with data for a fair while, with a couple of milk companies going down. That data's all been updated, and it showed, as we'd expect, through that period of the grocery surge, that yes, fluid demand did pick up, and after that, no, it's fallen again. And that's probably going to stay weak if the schools stay subdued. So they might even get worse than that. So it's gone back to usual trend, which pushes more milk into the manufacturing sector. Looking across the ditch, the pond, to the EU, we've had a bit of an update of some production data showing, we've been all looking at this situation with a bit of anxiety, with expecting that if there's a weaker cheese demand, we'll see more move to, solid, into skim milk powder and butter. We did see that a little bit, but the latest data shows that, which is interesting in Europe, not only did the cheese production go up, so did everything else, except whole milk powder. So scratching our heads about that a bit. But the growth in skim output hasn't happened yet, and that may, if milk supply stays a little bit under pressure, that may not happen.
Sure.
So that's looking all right. GDT.
Yeah. 266.
Yeah. Index was down.
Probably not unexpected.
No, mostly a weaker result. And they've seen that interesting thing that the product put up, not all of it went. So the same thing has happened in the last 2 years, that this event is a bit of a tricky one.
Yep.
We see a rise in available volumes and then stutters. So that's about, I guess, everyone getting used to the fact that there's more coming. So demand is a little weaker in this event. For whole milk and skim, the whole milk was a little worse. Skim milk powder demand was about average, but the fats were fairly weak.
Yeah.
The big takeaway was the extent of the Chinese involvement in milk powders. So very strong turnout in terms of percentage of what was sold.
Yeah.
Was better than 3/4 in both cases.
Yep.
So that's reassuring at least. Fats got hammered. You can see there, though, most of the action was in the short term. It gives a nice couple of rising profiles of prices, but they're a lot lower than what they were.
Absolutely.
Cheese is the other interesting thing, that while the cheddar values look quite weak, and we see the big difference between what's being quoted regionally and what's happening on GDT, but then when you compare that to the Irish price at the moment, things are fairly similar.
Yeah.
So the pointy end of where new business is being done, there's probably a bit of Irish butter being offered, Irish cheddar being offered in this part of the world. Yep. Which might be helping to press that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's something to think about. Chart of the week, Joe, what have you got?
Yeah, chart of the week, we thought we'd bring it home to Australia, and we've said a couple of times, you don't often see a weather outlook map of Australia looking like that with so much blue. So the Bureau of Meteorology here has put us on a La Nina alert, which means there's a 70% chance that a La Nina event will be in effect in spring and summer here, which means higher than average rainfall for most of the eastern part of Australia, and you can see that in that map on the left.
I've never seen a map look like that.
Yeah, batten down the hatches. And so obviously for dairy farmers and all irrigating farmers, water storage levels are slowly coming up. We've had a bit of an upward adjustment in water allocations this week for irrigated farmers, which is taking the pressure off water prices, but we're still a long way from 100%, so we've actually got to get that rain in the catchments and see those allocations rise a bit more probably.
Yeah, for those who aren't local, the 3 bars on the left are the most important ones. That's where all the volume is. They're very large reservoirs, but encouragingly they're starting to fill.
Yeah, and these are basically all in the Victorian irrigation scheme, so which is where most of the irrigated dairy is. So, yeah.
Okay.
Bit of an update.
That's a good one. All right. Well, that's all from us. We hope to be back next week. Thanks for watching. See you soon.